Hey guys, I'm Dr. Kori Probst, and I'm here today with Dr. Joe Klemczewski. Welcome to the Diet Doc Life Mastery Podcast. We're talking reverse dieting today. Hi, Joe.
How are you, Kori?
I'm awesome, thank you. How are you?
We've had some days off from doing the podcast with all the holidays.
Yes, we have.
So reverse
again.
yeah. Reverse dieting. This is going to be a fun one. I might throw a few things. So
you might throw a few things. Ooh, okay.
This
getting animated.
This is a painful topic because of all of the misinformation out there.
Yeah. Let me just say this. When you said we're going to talk about reverse dieting, the first word that came to my mind as I'm thinking through this topic was misconceptions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's go all the way back to the origin of even that term, because it piggybacked off of the phrase metabolic damage. Remember that one?
Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Yes, I do.
So one of our friends in the industry just threw that term out there kind of flippantly, later retracted it because it's not a thing. Metabolisms don't become damaged. You have to almost starve yourself to death and then have epigenetic changes in your body to have actual, I don't want to call it damage, just a suppressed adaptation in your metabolic capacity that's very difficult to then come back out of, but it can. So anyway, so all of that mess, I think, is behind us to a large degree. I'm sure there's enough content out there that it's gonna still be in our vernacular for a while, but I know you, Kori, you have had so many clients come to you who have said, I'm miserable, Kori, I'm working with this particular coach, or I just left this coach who wanted me to reverse diet all the way up to some arbitrary level. He or she wanted me to get to 2,500 calories a day or whatever it was. And now I've gained 30, 40, 50 pounds and I'm miserable. I don't know what to do. How many times has that happened?
I can't count, Joe. I don't know. Too many.
Okay. So I want to tell you a little story of what happened to me when I met with a really great guy. I mean, he's a super guy, very intelligent. He came into the nutrition coaching world without any background in nutrition, no education in nutrition, but he listens to a lot of influencers in the industry. So he feels like he's got a good grasp. And it's his desire to do this as a career. And I used to be very anti that because I wouldn't go to a plumber and say, hey, I want to be a plumber. Let me, give me some tools. I'm going to get to work. let me be a neurosurgeon. I think I would be really good at it. Let me just get in there with a scalpel.
Yeah.
There's a reason that we have basic competencies in any profession. But anyway, I've lost that war. And so now we have to
for another day.
Yeah, we have to be people who actually help at least educate these people, which we do. I mean, that's what we want. That's what our whole company is all about now. So, but here is the danger for people who do not have the kind of support that they should have. This particular guy said, hey, Joe, I got a question for you. I've got this client. She came to me. She's 50, 60 pounds overweight. She's a type 2 diabetic. I think we've mentioned this before, Kori, on the podcast.
Yeah, bells are ringing now. Yes.
Yeah, and I really thought we should go through a reverse diet. So for the last 6 months, we've done that. We've got her calories up to this level, and I said, well, okay, so what's happened? Well, we had to gain a little bit of weight, but we're stable now. Food's up a little bit higher, and I said, okay, so this person with a health condition, type 2 diabetes, came to you to lose weight. And the first thing that came to your mind is let's add weight to her. And Kori, you know this, but not many people do. When somebody cannot lose body fat, is it because they're eating too little?
Never.
Absolutely not. That is such a misnomer in our culture now because of people who write articles about things like metabolic damage. So the first thing that came to my mind when he said this was, Well, do you realize that maybe her food intake wasn't exactly what you or she thought? That biologically, physiologically, just at a basic physics level, calories in, calories out, you did not increase her food and somehow fix her metabolism. That did not happen. You probably gave her better accountability, maybe better accuracy and objectivity. And so now, maybe even because of better habits and better food sources, she feels better. But if she was not losing weight when she came to you, and after 6 months, she's still not losing weight, you did nothing with her food intake overall. You did not.
Well, and where's her confidence now, too?
Well, I mean,
in herself
the main thing
and the
is,
coach.
I mean, she obviously had a lot of buy-in because she trusted him to do this. But the split in the road is that so many people think it, and even 20, 25 years ago, I mean, you've heard this all the time throughout your career. As soon as somebody starts eating better because of food quality and food volume from a mass perspective, they say, oh my gosh, I'm eating so much more and now I'm losing weight, right?
Yes.
Are they eating more calories, Kori?
No, they are not.
Okay. So some of this stuff, guys, I know is going to sound a little off because you've learned the opposite to be true, that you need to eat more to gain weight or to lose weight. That is just not true. There are very small margins where you can change some of those behaviors, as I suggested, better food quality, better timing, better accuracy, and you're going to feel like you're eating more. But that's not it. You're just simply more accurate and more objective with your eating. So here's what reverse eating is not. Because I, Kori, wanted to do this podcast for the same reason that you mentioned. I have so many clients every day who bring me these questions. And a prospective client just came to me, said, Joe, I want to work with you. I've already lost about 25 pounds, got about 10 pounds to go, but I really think I need to reverse diet first. And I said, well, what is that going to accomplish? She said, well, I need to get my food intake as high as possible.
So that I can diet again.
Right?
That's what I hear. So that I can decrease my calories again. Okay.
So I said, how high do you want to get your calories? And, what's that end goal? And she articulated back, of course, that, the goal is that you need to build your food intake. And that's what increases your metabolism forever. It changes your genetics. This is what she's assuming because of what she hears. And this to be true. I mean, this is out there in our field and we have to contend with it.
I would love that if that were true.
Yeah.
I would love it if I could eat 2,000 calories a day.
Yeah. And, guys, for anybody who's ever tracked their own food, you guys out there, if you've been doing this for a while, I mean, wait until you have years and years and years of your own data to look at. I was teaching a tutoring course in our National Academy of Metabolic Science yesterday, and we were going over energy balance. And I said, okay, look, the average, a lot of studies out there, a lot of big surveys and all that. And some of the better ones show that the average basal metabolic rate for the average man, and this, 18 to 70 years old, tons of, genetic, outliers in there. But the average is 1,650 calories for men, 1,350 calories for women. That's an average. And I know that seems incredibly low. And like I said, there are outliers. Everything is on 100% continuum. So if that's the average, of course there are people who could eat more, but there are also 50% of people who have to eat less. So I said, let's just use me as a case study. 17 or 1,650 calories as a basal metabolic rate. Well, I track my food, and basal metabolic rate does not include my training. And I always do a pretty, short, maybe 15, 20-minute cardio in the morning, just as part of my normal health habit. And then I do really aggressive training in the afternoon. That's 5 to 6 days a week. So on a pretty minimum conservative scale, I would estimate that I'm I'm at maybe 500 to 600 calories that I'm using,
Yes.
every day in my training. So if my basal metabolic rate is 1650 on average, I add 600 of that. That's about 2,250 calories if I'm doing my math right. Is that right? Okay. 600 plus 1650. Okay. Well, guess what? Guess what, Kori? If you look at my nutrition journal spreadsheet, you would see when I average 2,250 calories a week, I don't lose or gain weight. So that is an exact estimation of my basal metabolic rate. But shouldn't I be eating 3,000 calories a day, 4,000?
Right.
Maybe if I just reverse diet the right way, I could eat 5,000 calories a day. Wouldn't that work? For the last 25 years as a professional bodybuilder and consultant and all that, there have been many, many times I've tracked my food in as much detail as a human can. I have a binder this thick full of all that data.
Yep.
And it's always the exact same. If I let my body weight get up higher, I've been in the 190s. I've approached 200 pounds. I've been as low as, just under 150. And when my body weight is that high, guess how much I can eat, Kori?
Quite a bit more, Joe.
2,800 or so calories, because I'm carrying 50 pounds of extra weight around. My musculoskeletal system, my heart, my lungs, everything is working harder. My resting heart rate is 15 to 20 beats per minute higher at that weight just because of all the extra work.
Right.
That didn't change my genetics at all. I didn't reverse build my metabolism permanently, because as soon as I'm back down to 175, here's my calorie rate. I just told you. As soon as I'm down to about 150, now I've got to eat about 2,000, maybe even 1,850, 1,900 calories to maintain. And every time I go back up or come down, back up or come down, the data is identical. So, I wanted to use that as an example just to show that all of you guys, if you can track your own food in that much detail, you will see as your body weight changes that you can get a very good picture of your genetic metabolic capacity. So let's talk, Kori, about some of the peripheral edges of what we can do with reverse dieting. We know, because you were a pro competitor in 3 different divisions. You've won pro titles. You have also been just unbelievably lean, striated glutes. You've created almost a new standard for women in fit body and figure for conditioning. So tell me what your food intake differences and perceptions were like at, let's say, 100 pounds versus 115, 120 pounds.
I ate significantly more. I eat significantly more now than I could eat when I'm 100 pounds. And I will say, here's where I think people get confused though too, Joe, is at one point during my competition prep, when I was continuing to lose body weight, 2 weeks into, let's say at 2 weeks prior to the show, right? As you started adding food for me, I'm continuing to lose body fat. So you needed to, I didn't need to lose any more. Otherwise I was just going to look stringy, look like a skeleton. And at one point my carbs were up to 450 grams. I was eating 200 grams of protein and my fat was at 50. I've never in my life eaten that much food. But a lot of people think that in that tiny little small window where we're building metabolically, that's the new standard. Like I should be able to continue eating this much food permanently. And that's the ultimate sign of my metabolic health. Like right now at 113 to 115, depending upon the day, with at least an hour of pretty intense training per day where I'm burning 500 to 700 calories. My food levels per day are between 1,550 and 1,600 on average per day.
So as a young, healthy, extremely athletic person, you're telling me you can't eat 2,500 calories a day?
I would be huge.
Right. So what you just said there is incredibly important, Kori, because that is the perfect segue into what reverse dieting is. It's a very transitional segue into maintenance levels of calories. And here's where all this originated. So, maybe 8-10 years ago, I wrote an article series and I described the process of metabolic building. And exactly what you're describing. You're as lean as you can possibly be. You are at the end of a dieting process and you've met your goals, whether you are an athlete, a physique sport athlete, or a general population dieter. You have met that goal. Your diet is already as low as you would possibly want it to be. You've been in a calorie deficit. Now it's time to get back to maintenance, and the goal being not to regain body fat.
Keyword being maintenance, not gaining more weight, but just eating enough food so that you can stay at that level of body fat that you have achieved.
And it all came about because I was working with extremely good competitors who would achieve, great levels of leanness. And we had to do that before the contest. It was all about regaining, lost lean body mass and fullness, regaining metabolic capacity so that you walk into that event at your healthiest and best. Then after that series of articles started getting read and passed around and shared, a couple people started writing about this in terms of kind of the post-contest, and they termed it reverse dieting. And then it became that whole process of fixing, quote unquote, metabolic damage.
Yeah.
And like you said, this is an important point you brought up, Kori. When you reach a level of metabolic suppression and adaptation that's normal because you've been in a calorie deficit and now your body composition is leaner, you've put yourself in the number one environment for weight regain because your body composition is lower. Body composition is a huge variable with metabolism, and your food intake is the next biggest variable. So body composition is lower, food intake is lower. It's just like compressing a spring. And if you let that go with a lot of food, you're going to regain body fat. It has to be a very incremental process.
Yeah, I use the word methodical, and it's not freaking easy. I remember when I am dieting to lose body fat, I'm under 1,100 calories. I just have to be. So then Kori getting down to 5% body fat, I'm in that very precarious place then. And the goal was never to stay at 5% body fat because that's just not a healthy place for me to live. But even just to get it up maybe 8 to 10, it's not, okay, pile on the food. Like, let's do this because I can eat a ton more now. No, it was very methodical, very structured. I'm still tracking my food. I have proteins, carbs, and fats that I'm aiming for every single day. And because we're in this place too where the diet is over, psychologically, there's this new sense of urgency to eat. And so kind of coming at it in a very tempered way is challenging. But go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it depends on how we move into the next phase that's going to make the difference for how easy or difficult it's going to feel. If I come out of the competition and I'm under the impression that I'm going to be able to eat a ton more now, that's very different than, okay, my metabolism is suppressed. I'm 5% body fat now instead of 10 to 15% body fat. And this is just, it's going to take the same level of effort. Now I'm moving into the new phase with kind of a different perception of what the pursuit is going to be like.
Right. And you mentioned that phase where your food intake was substantially higher, and that is almost what you could describe as an inflated, super compensatory transition, because if you stayed at 200 grams of protein, 400 grams of carbs, 50, 60 grams of fat, you would eventually start gaining body fat. But
yes,
being in that suppressed state at a lower body composition level, you do have some room where your body is looking to actually increase your metabolism, but it's back up to your normal undieted levels. And so you get this great tailwind for your metabolism, so that all of a sudden you are eating more and it feels like, my gosh, I'm just eating more and more and more, and I'm not gaining. And then you reach a threshold where all of a sudden, and this has to do with leptin, ghrelin, hormones like that, where your nervous system, your brain is monitoring the actual levels of body fat in body fat cells. And as those start to replenish even just a little bit, then your body kind of calms back down, settles into its normal groove. So metabolism is driven by genetics. You cannot change that. The two things you can have an impact on are your food intake over time, so that's the whole dieting process, and your body composition. Those are the two variables we're talking about. So as you said, Kori, you methodically bring your food back up. That's metabolic building, or that could be reverse dieting. But you get up to a point where you're happy. Is it 8% body fat? Is it 10%? Did you gain 5 pounds back? Whatever it is, find that range. But by gaining more, by force feeding yourself into 20, 30, 40 pounds of extra body fat, yes, you will increase your metabolism within your genetic range for that unhealthier, less efficient body composition.
So it's a relative value. It's not an absolute value.
100% relative.
Yes.
It's your genetics. That's the bar. That's the x-axis. And then compared to your body composition level. And then thirdly is your actual food intake. And like I said, you do have some impact. These are this is the periphery I was talking about, where we do have some control. If I have higher complexity in my food sources, if I have better thermic potential from the food I'm eating, so I've got my protein up to the maximum levels that would be safe and effective. Carbohydrate sources are, including enough fiber, and my starch sources are the most complex they can be. I'm not over consuming fat, which has basically almost a zero thermic potential.
Right.
So all of those things matter. The timing of your food, your training, but that is such a small percent compared to your overall body composition and dieting status.
Yeah, I will say, Joe, because I was going to say, well, there's the third element, and that's exercise. But I completely agree with you that it's a very small percent until you get up into the hours and hours of exercise, or that an endurance athlete, a pro endurance athlete, would be engaging in. When I am over the weekends, I'm typically cycling 8 to 10 hours. I'm going to be able to eat a lot more food those days than I can during the week when I'm just training for one. But I think my point with that is it's relative based on the context, but your absolute ceiling does not change.
Right. And I wouldn't even count that, although academically it is under the umbrella of metabolism. When you are training, yes, your metabolism is higher because your body is burning more calories at that moment. But, new studies show that even the EPIC, the post-exercise oxygen consumption is not as high as people thought. You don't get this, hours and hours and hours of accelerated body fat burning. It's only about 15% of the total calorie usage of that training session. But it does have impact. I mean, if I wasn't doing that 15-minute training in the morning, if my, training wasn't aggressive in the afternoon, my calorie expenditure might be cut in half, and that has impact, but it's not my quote metabolism.
Yeah. Well, here's what's interesting. I mean, if you think about it, my heart rate doesn't stay in zone 4 when I'm done with the workout for the next 5 hours. The other thing is, though, after a training session like that, I'm probably sitting on my butt, not wanting to do anything. And so everything slows down.
And the end result of being healthier, like, yes, you're burning more calories during your training sessions, but your average heart rate at rest is lower. So you actually have a net negative calorie, balance because you're training so hard.
Yes.
So it's never the goal to have the fastest metabolism ever, because that actually decreases your life expectancy. But it's a good indication that you at least are maximizing your genetic potential. I mean, we don't want to have a suppressed metabolism. We want it to at least be the top end, but the top end of where we are healthy. I'd rather be leaner and have a resting heart rate of 40 than be 50 pounds heavier with a resting heart rate of 80. And even though up here I could eat 800 calories more, so my metabolism is reversed. I built my metabolism. Well, I'm also going to die 10 years sooner and be miserable.
I just want to say one more thing, that I'm thinking about hunger right now, and how I think a lot of people, when they're done dieting, think that they're not going to be hungry anymore because they're going to increase their food to a certain level and just hunger is going to disappear. Well, you're still a human. Hunger doesn't disappear. You still need food.
Those are just catchy little, blog titles that, get clicks, that has no value in reality.
Well, they get clicks, but unfortunately people also believe them. Yeah.
That's why we're here, Kori. Trying to stave off the madness.
No more dieting chaos, people.
All right, guys, we went a little longer than I wanted to, but this is a topic that is painfully just in our faces every day, because as Kori just said, I know so many people believe this, and then they're very disenchanted why they can't, have this progress that somebody promised them or somebody else is writing about. So I hope this helped. We've got a lot of other podcasts in the past that we've talked about metabolism and how to get the most out of your macronutrients and all that stuff. But I wanted to do one specifically on the misinformation about reverse dieting. And Kori, I very much appreciate you jumping in with me.
No, thank you, Joe.
All right, guys, have an awesome rest of your day. Thanks for listening. And I noticed, Kori, the other day that we're starting to get some pretty cool reviews on iTunes, places like that. So you guys, very, very thankful for you to do that. If you've got a chance to go just drop a positive note on one of our YouTube clips or something like that. So keep up the great work, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.